As a matter of fact, here we are. My timing was off. I was like making sure like all these other buttons were pushed, and I was staring at Bryan Driskell's happy face, and I forgot to hit the start button on the YouTube stream. So for everybody, we're all caught up now. We're ready to go. How are you, Bryan?
I'm good. We did that the other day, man. We did an 8-minute intro, and Trev's like, "Hey, bro, I don't think
Never
we're
hit
live."
the start button. Don't you love it?
And
Don't
it
you
was
love
great
it?
stuff too, man. I was on fire, Sean. I was
Right.
spitting.
It's when you come out firing your best stuff when nobody's there. Of course. Of course. Well,
yes.
he's Bryan Driskell. We've got a lot of Notre Dame football recruiting that we're going to talk about tonight as the Fighting Irish get set to host Navy this weekend, the third of 3 primetime games for the Fighting Irish at Notre Dame Stadium this season. The Game Dame show from 3 to 6 tomorrow on Sports Radio WSBT. We've got Notre Dame men's basketball coming up tonight. They'll host Detroit Mercy. Tip-off is at 7 o'clock. The pregame show at 6:30 here on Sports Radio WSBT, as well as the Odyssey app and the Notre Dame Radio Network. They're wearing their The Bend uniforms tonight. The women wear the Bend uniforms Sunday when they host Chicago State at 3 o'clock. Pregame at 2:45. And again, all the same, in terms of the radio and everything. And the Irish hockey team is at Minnesota this weekend, 8 o'clock tonight and tomorrow night. So there's kind of a busy weekend with all the sports going right now. Bryan, it's a not quite as busy maybe as a couple of weeks ago when Notre Dame hosted USC, but always a busy weekend nonetheless. It's a home game, so there are always going to be recruiting visitors, again, maybe a little bit smaller group this week. But who are some of the current commits? Let's start with that. Current commits who are going to be back in town this weekend for the Notre Dame Navy game.
The big one is Teddy Gerard. Obviously the 2027 quarterback commit. He's having a very strong year. They're actually going to be in the Georgia playoffs, which start next week. So they actually have a bye. So Teddy's able to get on campus, and it's not a big week, Sean, but it's an important week. There's some very, very big-time players on campus this weekend. And when you can get your highly ranked top 50 national player, big-time quarterback in that class to be on campus, you're going to have a shot to make an impression. So I think that's an important one. There's a very good 2027 offensive lineman on campus this weekend, which we'll get to. So having Sullivan Garvin and having Ben Nichols on campus is going to be very important because Sean, you've been doing this a long time. You know that of all the positions in football, that's the one where sort of like that group feel has the biggest impact. It's not so much about me and what I'm going to do. It's like, hey, what's this brotherhood that I'm stepping into? What are these guys that I'm going to be playing with about? So having them on campus is important. You've got a big-time linebacker on campus in the 27 class, which, again, we'll talk about. So having Thomas Davis Jr. on campus is important. Having Jacoby Clapper on campus is important. And then having Ellis McGaskin, who's a 2027 linebacker commit on campus. So I don't think it's a coincidence that you've got some talented skill players on, and so you've got your quarterback, you've got some talented offensive linemen and linebackers on, so you've got your commits there. I don't think that's a coincidence by any stretch by the Notre Dame coaching staff.
Yeah, that group mentality with the offensive line that you talk about, that reminds me of back when you used to watch the Broncos, like that group that none of them would talk to the media, that whole thing. It was just like they're all hunkered down, like their own little thing. There's definitely that mentality. Offensive line, for sure.
And you want that.
Yeah.
You want that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You want guys that buy into that.
Absolutely. Penn State, things interesting, still at Penn State after the firing of James Franklin. They've had I don't know what the total decommit list is, but they've definitely had their share of decommitments. Sounds like there's going to be at least a couple of those guys in this weekend.
Yeah.
What are you expecting?
Well, number one, you're going to have a 2026 player. So Notre Dame is pretty much done with 2026 class, but there are a couple guys that they're still talking to, and one of them is Matt Sieg, who's a safety, but he's a guy that in high school he reminds me a lot of like Jack Kaiser, Xavier Watts. Guys that were like dynamic high school players on both sides of the ball. I saw something the other day. He's got like 12,000 career yards in the
Wow.
Whippeal, which is just obviously the big Western PA league and region. So he's a really talented player. I mean, if you're going to look for a comp, Xavier Watts is a good one. Not a like super fast, but very athletic, very smart, makes a ton of plays. Can play safety, can play nickel, and could also play offense if the need arose. So, the only question I have there is how hard is Notre Dame pushing for him? I honestly don't know if that's a guy that right now they're saying, hey, we got to have. Again, that's a legitimate question. That's not me saying that they aren't, but I think this visit's going to be very telling, and he's gonna get the answers he needs on how bad Notre Dame wants him. So I think we'll know a lot more about that one coming out of the visit.
So for 2026, like you said, I mean, the signing day's coming up in just a little bit more than a month in December. And like you said, that group is pretty much closed. But instances like this, where you've got a good enough player, you get some of these decommitments because there are obviously so many coaches losing their jobs out there. They're obviously still interested if they're the right guy, is kind of what you're saying.
Right. And I do think there's need for, if you were going to say, is there a place you can maybe add one more player? I think a pure safety is that. Obviously, you have Joey O'Brien, but Joey O'Brien could play corner. He could play wide receiver. Nick Reddish is sort of more of a safety nickel player. And then, of course, Aiden Pouncey and Kari Adams and Chaz Smith are all corners. So if there was a position where you could say, you could at least debate, do they maybe need another player? That would be it. I personally don't think they need one because I think Aiden Pouncey could play safety. I think that obviously you've got Joey O'Brien. I think that Chaz Smith could eventually play some safety. Obviously Nick Reddish could play there. But when you have a talented player like Matt Sieg on that like out there, you'd be foolish not to at least see where it's at and see where it can go.
Notre Dame's done pretty well in the state of North Carolina recently, and they've got a 2027 defensive back coming in. I'll let you say his name because I'm not sure. Is it Xavier or Xavier?
Yeah, I believe it's Xavier Hassan. Yeah,
Xavier Hassan. Yeah. Okay. How important is this visit?
Huge. Notre Dame has done extremely well in this recruitment, Sean. Coach Mickens has been on Xavier Hassan for a while, and even before the offer came out, he's been on him for a while. He's been on campus before. That relationship with Xavier Hassan and Mike Mickens is strong, and Marcus Freeman's very involved in that recruitment as well, which tells you a little something about what kind of prospect he is. Marcus Freeman can't get involved with everybody. Really,
but he's also not just a closer. So there's
right,
that.
exactly. Definitely not. No, he's definitely not. At least he's not as good as Lincoln Riley, apparently, at that. But sorry, I couldn't help myself. But Xavier Hassan's a big time player, Sean. I like guys. It's not a must, but I prefer players if all things are equal. I like guys that can do a lot. That's one thing that I loved about Dallas Golden. It's like, look, Dallas Golden could play either corner spot, nickel, safety, running back, wide receiver. Xavier Hassan's one of those guys that could fit into the Notre Dame defense across the board in the secondary. He could play corner, which is what he's being recruited to play. I think he could play nickel at a high level because he's a pretty physical kid. And I think also he could be a really good safety. He reminds me a lot of a Don Schuler with more speed as a safety, as a potential safety target, but also a corner, a guy that's an impact corner, top 100 recruit. And look, I don't make predictions, but if this visit goes the way that I think it will, Notre Dame is going to be very hard to beat for him, and he's a big time player. And I did forget to when I was talking about the Penn State, Sean. Obviously, I forgot to mention Leighton Von Brandt, who's a 2027 offensive lineman who was also committed to Penn State, who's going to be on campus this weekend. He is a big time player, another top 100 recruit that Notre Dame. That one I know for a fact Notre Dame wants him. They're going to make a very strong push for him. He's another one that I think if this weekend goes well, the Irish could put themselves in a very, very strong position in his recruitment. So those are two guys for sure to keep your eye on if you're like maybe who could be some of the next guys to jump in the class if things go well. those two guys are in my top group of guys to keep an eye on.
Are these Penn State guys full-fledged decommits, or are they kind of like, still like leaving their options open kind of thing at this point?
Von Brandt's he's decommitted. Sieg is still open to Penn State, but I think he's going to look more at some other programs. And there was an update he did this week with a Western Pennsylvania reporter where he said he listed some schools that were in his top group. And then he says, and wherever James Franklin lands. So, and honestly, I think that's a big reason why Penn State lost so many commitments, is because James Franklin sold James Franklin more than he sold Penn State. And I think that's a big reason you've seen that. And it's obviously going to be to Notre Dame and Ohio State and a couple other programs benefit that they had. That's why you had so many kids decommit, because I don't know that LSU's had a single kid decommit yet.
That's true.
And for different reasons, but I think that's something that's really hurt Penn State.
Yeah. Another 2027 guy, linebacker Caden Henderson, is coming in this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Another elite player, it sounds like. Is this his first visit?
I believe so, yeah. This is his first trip to Notre Dame. They've been on him for a while, Sean, but only recently did it seem like they were really making a move. And, look, this is one of those ones where obviously you've done well in Florida, you've landed some top players, but this is one where I think a big part of it is just Notre Dame kind of becoming the it program. But then also, I don't know how you watch Notre Dame the last month and a half, and if you're a big-time linebacker that you don't think, I'd like to play there, for a couple reasons. Number one is the linebackers are really productive and just impact players. But the other thing is you're watching 4 guys every game, sometimes 5, play.
Yeah.
I mean, this past week, we saw Drake Bowen have a big game. We saw Kingston Villiamasa have a big game. We saw Jalen Sneed make a lot of plays. We saw Jaden Osbury make a lot of plays. So it's like, I don't have to even be a starter to be an impact player there. Kingston Villiamasa hasn't started a game this year, and he's been an impact player all year. And I think that's something that's very attractive to young linebackers. Like, look, I only got to get in the top 4 or 5 at linebacker to get on the field and play. And obviously Mark, that's a position too where Marcus Freeman being the head coach is going to have an even greater impact than other places, because at the end of the day, he's still a linebacker and he's going to sell. Like, dude, I was a team captain at Ohio State, a team to play for national championship. You know what I mean? Like, I had 100 tackles and all that kind of stuff. That's still his baby. Steve Spurrier was the head coach for a long time. Quarterbacks was still his baby.
Right.
And same thing with Marcus Freeman and the linebacker position. So I'm a little surprised they've been able to make this much traction with Henderson, but it's big time, Sean, because you pop in this kid's film and you're like, he's like about 6'2", about 205, fast, athletic, everything like you'd think. But then you watch him and you start seeing how he hits. And he's one of those guys that when you make contact, your feet are no longer on the ground. And he's got that kind of power, just that explosiveness through the hips, the ability to just drive through ball carriers, and just the ability to play with power for a kid with his size is one of the more surprising things that I saw when I popped on tape. And he's instinctive, he's smart, he's a big time player. So he's going to be hard to get out of the South. But if you're getting a kid to come up on his own dime, as a junior, you've made an impact, certainly, in his recruitment so far.
And again, he's a 2027 guy. Xavier Hassan is a 2027 guy. In that class, we're still a year out, obviously, but I think it's only, 5 or 6 guys that are committed in that class right now, right?
Yep, 5, yep.
All right. So still a ways to go, but sounds like some good promise there. Mitch wants to know if there are any kickers coming in.
No, Mitch. No kickers visiting this weekend. I heard there's a really good one at Hillsdale College that they may want to try to look at. I don't know.
That's right.
I know this guy I know. But look, I think that in all seriousness, Sean, these next 4 games are important for Notre Dame's future in the kicking position. And this is what I've advocated for a couple of weeks. Let Eric Schmidt have that job for the next month, unless he just has a mental meltdown. See how he does. And if he's not the future at the position as a place kicker, but he's obviously a punter and a kickoff guy, then go find another kicker this offseason. And if he is showing promise, then you work with him all offseason, and your portal additions are more for depth. So I think these next 4 weeks are going to be very important to say, hey, look, Eric, you're our guy. Don't be looking over your shoulder. Just go out there, do your job. Let's see what happens and see if he's got the chops or not. And if he doesn't, then you know what to do. You go
Yeah.
find somebody else. But they've got to try to get away from this finding a new kicker every year thing, because there's just going to be years like this year where the guy you got just doesn't pan out, and you can't keep,
All your
processing
eggs
a
in
new.
one basket. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then also you find a guy and have him for 3 or 4 years. I mean, I just think that's, if you can find a guy like that, that's the ideal move. And hopefully Eric Schmidt can be that guy. If not, then you need to try and find that guy, not just through the portal, but through the high school ranks as well.
So we've got a little bit of time left here. Who are some of the other top guys who are going to be coming in for this Notre Dame Navy weekend?
Well, there's a receiver, Sean, that I like that's coming in campus this weekend. There's really two, actually. There's very different players. Rob Larson's a guy that was on campus this summer for Irish Invasion and dominated. He's from the same high school as Rico Flores Jr. Big time player, 6'2", 6'3", the fastest guy in the world, but good athlete. But he's just that kind of guy, like, you see in the NFL, like that Cooper Cup type of guy that, no, he's not a 4'5", 4'4", but he's a good athlete. He's got great ball skills. He knows how to play, knows how to get open, knows how to win. I mean, they had some big time DBs on campus this summer, Sean, and it didn't matter who they lined up against them. He smoked them. And I'm not talking like by a step or two. I mean, I'm talking like 3-4 yards on some of these guys. I'm curious to see how that goes. There's another receiver that's on two more receivers on campus this weekend from 27. Tyler Fryman, who's a lot like Matt Sieg athletically, kid from Kentucky. Carter Bonner, who's a 2027 kid from Pennsylvania. I'm curious to see how that goes. Titus Hawk, talking about a good football name. There's a tight end from Oklahoma. I mean, if you're going to have a kid named Titus Hawk, he's probably going to be like a lineman or a tight end, and he's probably going to be from like Oklahoma or something like that. You know what I mean? But he's exactly what his name would sound like. Big, physical, strong kid. Sort of a Cooper Flanagan type of tight end. He's going to be on campus this weekend as they continue to try to sort out that class. Garyon Hobbs is a 27 linebacker from Kentucky the staff really likes. And then there's a 2027 commit named Kamari Bam Whitfield from Florida, who's committed to Tennessee, but he's going to be visiting this weekend as well, which again just kind of continues to show the pull that this staff has. So some very talented players on campus. Oh, and also Devin Fitzgerald's is another commit that'll be on campus
Coming
this
back in.
weekend.
All right.
Yep, he'll be on campus this weekend. So
Sounds good.
some talented players, no doubt. And there's a couple 28 kids. King Pitts is a 28 offensive lineman to keep an eye on. And Jaden Irons is a 2028 DB that's going to be on campus. Lorenzo McMullen Jr. is another wide receiver from Ohio. It's a 28 kid to keep an eye on. But this class is so early that it's hard to tell. And just real quick, since we got a couple minutes, Sean, there's a big development this week also. There's a 2028 lineman from California named Marcus Fakatu, who's been to Notre Dame's campus like 4 times, including for a game this year. He was a guy that Notre Dame's in a great position with. You thought if they were going to kick off 28 with a kid, he might be it. He announced this week he's reclassifying to the 2027 class. And he's a big 6'4", 6'5", 290-pound defensive tackle, big-time player that physically is ready to reclassify.
He's a sophomore.
He's a sophomore, right, yeah, and he's now going to reclassify the 27 class, and so he'll now be jumping up to being a senior next season when he goes. But he's a big-time player that Notre Dame absolutely loves. So that was big news when you start talking about the 2027 class.
Man, no kidding. All right, very exciting to hear that.
Yeah.
Good news. You out getting dinner right now?
No, had a little bit of a wife emergency came up today. She's out of town at a little retreat this weekend, and was having an issue that I had to go help her with. A little bit of an emergency situation, so that's why I had to do the improv. Hey, you know what, Sean? Rule number 76: no excuses. Pod like a champion. You know what I mean?
So there you go.
Do what we gotta do.
All right, Bryan Driskell, IrishBreakdown.com. That's where you can find all the latest. And of course, you can subscribe to the Irish Breakdown Champions Lounge, and that's where you get all the juicy special recruiting intel, team intel, and everything else. All right. Thanks, Bryan. I will see you out there tomorrow.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Bryan Driskell, IrishBreakdown.com. We will take a timeout. When we come back, we've got some Notre Dame Navy talk. Jesse's going to be jumping in here in just a minute. That is on the way. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. It's Budweiser's Weekday Sportsbeat with IrishBreakdown.com. Glad to have you with us on this Friday, getting ready for another Notre Dame home football weekend. We just got done talking with Bryan Driskell from IrishBreakdown.com. All the details on a fine recruiting weekend for the Fighting Irish with tomorrow night's 7:30 kickoff at Notre Dame Stadium. That means the game day shows from 3 to 6:30 Eastern time. They're live at the linebacker. Tim, Eric, and Tyler will be there before the Irish take on the midshipmen. Wide receiver Michael Floyd, linebacker Darryl Flash Gordon. They'll be there at the linebacker. Mitch Jeter, former Notre Dame kicker, last year's Notre Dame kicker, with a phone interview, will be joining them as well. How are you today, Jesse Stiers?
I'm great. It's Friday. A little rainy, little dreary, but it's Friday, and we just got all of our wedding photos. So really excited to go through all of those.
Yeah. Get all those cranked out and framed up and figure out what you're going to do with all those now.
Not a lot of people in our family know how to smile. I don't know if you know that.
It's mostly
you
the
and
older
mom did well, but
mostly
the grandparents, the
yes.
uncles, the aunts, they didn't do very well.
It's like they forget how to smile. People forget how to smile at some point. I don't understand.
It's like that you get like stage fright almost, and it's like, why are you getting stage fright for a photo?
I remember my one of my grandmas, my mom's mom, would never smile because she had dentures, and she was always conscious, like she thought that people were going to be able to tell that she had dentures, I think. So it was like a closed mouth, kind of a pursed lips kind of thing. It's like, just smile. It's okay. You can do it. All right, well, we'll see if we're smiling tomorrow night after the Irish and midshipmen play at Notre Dame Stadium. I got a couple comments from Marcus Freeman that I want to play that we're going to talk about here. 6 of the last 7 Fighting Irish defensive coordinators have struggled when facing Navy for the first time as defensive coordinator at Notre Dame. The exception of those last 7, Marcus Freeman, his 2021 defense held the midshipmen to 150 net rushing yards and just 6 points. Here's Marcus Freeman talking about being a defensive coordinator facing Navy for the first time.
I was fortunate that I faced Navy 4 times when I was at Cincinnati. And I think 4 times, it might have been 3. But the very first time I faced Navy, they might have ran for a record. And
so you're no longer the exception to
the exactly right. So don't let my first year at Notre Dame confuse you with my first time playing Navy. I think it was a rushing record. It might have been in 2017, and I didn't have any answer, right? They just kept running the ball, and we couldn't stop them. And that was that's a rough feeling. And it was really a decision we all made as a coaching staff, but it was like, we can't let this happen again. We got to dive deeper into it. We got to figure out what they're looking for, not just how to stop it. And, we got better as we continue to move forward against triple option offenses. And we did a good job my first year here. But it's a different offense than I faced when I was a coordinator here. It is truly enhanced, but I feel we'll have a good plan. Our guys will play fast. We'll be able to adapt and adjust. Our guys have experience, which is important, right? It's important. I know you could say that they had experience when Coach Golden took over, that offense. They did a good job. And so I don't know how it's going to be. We all have these preconceived thoughts of how we think it'll go on Saturday. Win the next play and find a way to win this game is what's important.
Always a little bit of a tightrope walk when you're facing Navy, and we talked a lot about it yesterday. That 2017 defense, by the way, that he talked about there, his first time facing it at Cincinnati, they gave up 569 rushing yards in that game. 569 to Navy. Navy had 2 100-yard rushers in that game, and the quarterback wasn't one of them. It was a slot back and the fullback. Al Golden's first crack at Navy, the mids rushed for 255 yards, and he gave up 32 points. So how are you feeling with Chris Ash getting his first crack at Navy tomorrow night, Jess?
Yeah, I would feel a lot worse if he didn't have Marcus Freeman in his corner. I think having Marcus Freeman in his corner is very important because, he's gone against this, attack, 8 times now between his time at Cincinnati and Notre Dame.
Yeah, exactly.
So he's got a ton of experience. And like he said, I think they have the fundamentals down, but they have to be ready for kind of this, enhanced version of the triple option, or, the version of Navy you see when they start to get down a little bit. We talked about it yesterday, going more out of the shotgun. They can still run the triple option out of shotgun. But yeah, I'm really not concerned about this because I know Marcus Freeman is leading the way of install. Why, if you're Chris Ash, there's no way you're like, yeah, I'm just going to ignore whatever Marcus Freeman is saying, because
exactly.
When's the last time?
And if you're Marcus Freeman, you're not
going
to let him just ignore it. You're going to
right.
Look, here's the blueprint. Here's what we've done. This is what it needs to look like. Like, it doesn't need to be much more complicated than that, I don't think.
And then the other advantageous part is what Marcus Freeman got into as well. It's Chris Ash might not have experience, but they have players on the team who have gone against this, at least 1, 2, 3, maybe even 4 seasons. So, knowing your responsibility, knowing your keys, it gets easier the more you do it. But I will say I did kind of have some traumatic flashback when Freeman was talking about they just kept running the ball and running like there is no worse feeling than when when the triple option is just chipping away at you for 3-4 yards. I remember in high school that one of the years we were really good, Mishawaka held the ball for an entire quarter. Entire quarter they held the ball. You just feel so helpless at times, because it's like there's really, when that triple option gets in a groove, there is at times nothing you can do.
What's the answer to this question? Swandong, and somebody brought this up yesterday. I don't think we addressed
There's no zone being played.
There's no reason to play zone, because everything is specific man-on-man assignment.
Yeah, even in run assignments, it's man. So if your man leaks out of the backfield, the running back leaks out of the backfield, you're just going to keep following him. You're not going to drop into some sort of zone. Like, the entire run scheme is basically a man run scheme. And then that's going to translate into the pass. So I don't see, there is like zero chance, unless it's like 3rd and 30. Like, that's the only time I could see them dropping into a zone.
You see 4 linebackers, 1 safety, typically. Is that kind of what you're thinking?
I'm thinking, unless obviously they split out wide receivers, and then they'll have, like a corner jammed up, pressed up on them. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be basically a 4-2-5. And yeah, you'll have 1 high safety, and usually that high safety travels with kind of like the tight end or the end man on the line of scrimmage. He'll be head up like 10 yards deep on the tight end usually.
And again, like when you talk about zone, even if they're throwing the ball, Notre Dame's defensive backs, that's the mismatch of the season, is Notre Dame's defensive backs against Naval Academy wide receivers. Like, there's no reason to think that your guys can't go, one-on-one against those guys. Everything starts with taking away the dive, though, the fullback dive. We've talked about it. Could you imagine, Jesse, being an FBS defensive coordinator and facing the triple option offense and not putting a nose guard over the center?
No. What that reminds me of is the other night, the Cowboys and Cardinals were playing. Brissett did a quarterback sneak, and I don't know if you noticed, but the Cowboys didn't have anyone lined up over the center. Him in the center just walked into the end zone. So if you want to lose a game very quickly against the triple option, that is step number 1, not having a nose tackle.
Just ask, you probably don't even remember this because you were still in high school, so you weren't looking at it as specifically. Bob Diaco, the first time he faced Navy, didn't have a nose guard covering the center, and fullback Alexander Teach ran for over 200 yards. Somehow didn't score a touchdown. Slot back Ricky Dobbs had 3 touchdowns, but the fullback for Navy over 200 yards because there was no one there, and they just kept plowing away up the middle. But, part of, and you can speak to this better than I can, but, having, broadcast Mishawaka games a few years back, and seeing that option offense every week, it was always interesting to see how different teams tried to defend them. Like, I remember one year, St. Joe was playing Mishawaka, and they've got their linebackers like 8 yards off the line of scrimmage. And it's just like, okay, if that's what you're going to do, here comes one dive. Here comes another dive. here comes a little veer. It's like you're just giving them 4 to 5 yards every crack if you're not going to have the linebackers up close to the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked the number one thing you have to do in the triple option is take away the fullback dive. If the fullback dive is successful, it's going to be a very long night for Notre Dame. Like, that's what gets the engine rolling in a triple option offense, is that fullback dive. So, you want to plug that up immediately. You want your linebackers and your defensive linemen kind of, pinch to the line of scrimmage. And that's what I was saying yesterday. The more that Navy condenses the box, meaning the more that they put their wings down on the line of scrimmage, they put tight ends with their hand in the dirt on the line of scrimmage. That means Notre Dame's linebackers are only going to get that much more closer. And as those wings, tight ends, running backs spread out, or they go shotgun, then you'll see the Notre Dame linebackers back off the line of scrimmage a little bit. But, I think that's one of the things that Marcus Freeman has learned in his time, is that relationship between, those wings, tight ends, and his linebackers, of where you have to be in proximity to make a tackle. You just got to make sure they don't get the 4 or 5 yarder, right? Like, if you can get them for 1 or 2, and we've said it before, any negative play or turnover is like, detriment to their whole operation. So that's what you need, is just every series, you need to find a way to blow up a play in the backfield, either for, a net 0 loss or minus yards. That's what gets them off schedule.
I mean, even one, like one, I guess one still can keep you on schedule if you're getting 3 yards a pop on the other 3 plays. But yeah, you're absolutely right. And that's even the key. It was the key last year to that passing game that everybody talked about, because of all the turnovers. It made Navy, even though they Horvath hit that 47-yard run and it made it 14-7, but the turnovers mounted. And when you put even a guy like Horvath, who has thrown the ball a lot more than any Navy quarterback basically since Roger Staubach in the 1960s, these last couple of years, you put them in a situation where he has to throw the ball, it's just a game changer. Where they hit you with those passes successfully is when they can still surprise you to some extent. That's still, we're going to have more success, because again, they're only averaging like 13 passing attempts per game. So it is still at its core an option offense, just that it has more pass game concepts mixed in along with it. So this is going to be Tay Johnson's. We were talking about the safeties. This is going to be Johnson's first opportunity to face Navy this weekend. And we've talked about the experience factor. Freeman discussed Johnson's keys in facing the offense and expanded beyond that, facing this offense a little bit more as well.
I mean, depending on the defensive call, in the offense formation will tell him where his eyes need to be. But every play, you gotta know where your eyes are. You got to know what your alignment is, and you got to know what technique you play with, right? And that's pre-snap. And then all of a sudden they start shifting and motion and doing all these things. And then post-snap, where's your eyes really transfer to? Is it staying on your man? Is it a progression to something else? And so you got to keep repping that. And it's always unique for the guys that have never played a triple option team, even in high school. But specifically like Navy or Army in college, it takes them a little bit of time to adjust to the speed that the game goes at. And so Tay has been working extremely hard, along with a lot of our guys, that this is their first time playing a triple option. But it's going to take a little bit. It'll take them, the first time guys, just a little bit of time. And we can't take too much time, right? But to adjust to the speed. But we got to just make sure that we remember, hey, where's my eyes? Where's my alignment? Where's my technique? And then you got to play fast when the ball snaps. You can't play, and people can think I'm crazy, but you can't play Navy football, right? You can't play perfectly just fit, dive, quarterback, pitch. Yeah, you got to know your responsibilities. But if you don't play these guys with violence and velocity, you're not going to win. You have to go and attack, and make sure you attack while you have your eyes, your alignment, your technique in the correct spots.
What stood out to you hearing that?
Yeah, I think 2 things stood out. One, the speed. You don't know about the speed of the triple option until it's on you. It's downhill. It's fast. Everything is moving very quickly. And then the other thing that I would kind of pick up on there is just kind of the mental prep that you have to do pre-snap to post-snap, of understanding, okay, here's where I'm at right now. They start motioning, maybe changing some things. And now the assignment might change a little bit. But, most importantly, I think what I picked up on there is on the snap of the ball, you have to be confident of where your landmark is and just go. Get there quickly, try to beat Navy to the landmark, and that's how you blow up plays. That's how you get negative plays, and that's how you get them off schedule. Like at the end of the day, you have pitchman and you see pitchman, starting to belly out towards, the sideline.
Mm-hmm.
Just get there as quickly as possible and close that gap, close that alley, and be ready to tackle. So I just think getting to your landmark quickly is the most important part. Knowing, who you have on that specific play, where they're going to end up, and then beating them to the spot, basically.
Do you really have to avoid watching the ball as opposed to just, like you said, your landmark, keying on your man? It's more about that than it is where the ball is actually, right? Because, literally, if you've got the pitch man, you've got to hit the pitch man every time. If you've got the dive, you've got to hit the fullback every time, regardless of whether he actually has the ball.
Yeah, and I think that's the annoying or maybe the hard part is you want to make the tackle. That's what you're trained to do is follow the ball and just kind of make a tackle. But you have to stay kind of assignment sound or lane integrity, because as soon as you don't, that's when they hit it on your backside, because you're looking in the backfield, or you're looking somewhere else. You're a safety that's, only keying in on these run plays. And the next thing you know, there's a throw going over the top of your head. That's just a simple pitch and catch, just because you're out of place essentially.
So Johnson, who that question was about, great athlete, obviously he's been great against your, what you'd probably call your standard passing offenses this year. But again, like when you talk about experience and everything else, I mean, Adon Schuler played against Navy last year. Luke Talich saw some time against Navy last year. Like, would you lean on those guys more than you would Johnson early on, as great as an athlete as he is?
I think that I would go with Johnson early, and if he's showing signs of not really, understanding or kind of getting beat in assignment, then I would switch him out. But I think he's got the athleticism and the speed, and really has shown the trustworthiness, the mental side of the game to be out there, as a freshman essentially. And I think that him and Marcus Freeman have a really good relationship. I think he is like, how they always say you're in when you have kids, you don't have a favorite, just like coaches don't have a favorite.
Right.
Like Tay Johnson is definitely at the top of Marcus Freeman's list. It's nothing he would never say out loud, but you can tell that him and Tay Johnson have a special bond. And I think he really trusts him to be out there and make the right play.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would definitely agree with that. He's Jesse Stiers. I'm Sean Stiers. It's Notre Dame Navy kicking off 7:30 tomorrow night here on Sports Radio WSBT. Tony Simeone and Ryan Harris with the call. Tony's got some men's basketball coming up in a little bit more than an hour here as well. We're going to continue with this Notre Dame Navy talk, and then after that, an abbreviated rapid fire, because we are out at 6:25 tonight because of Notre Dame men's basketball. That's on the way. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat continues with IrishBreakdown.com. Sean Stiers, Jesse Stiers, Notre Dame Navy coming up tomorrow night at Notre Dame Stadium. Just Mitch in the YouTube chat says, Jesse, if your dad told you he doesn't have a favorite, you know you're number 2.
Ouch.
Yep. You there?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Oh, boy. Oh, now go.
I said ouch because this is probably the truth at the end of the day.
But I don't think I've ever specifically said I don't have favorites, right?
No, you've never specifically said it.
Right. And no one's ever asked me. A few more thoughts on Navy before we wrap up this hour and then get into rapid fire. You know, basically all of the talk really when Notre Dame plays Navy is about facing the triple option. And I mean, it's for good reason though. But if you're the Irish, what personnel grouping would you come out in against Navy tomorrow night?
Are we talking offensively?
Yes, offensively.
I would go, honestly, I would start out in some 12 personnel and start hammering the ball on them because they have very undersized defensive linemen. I would look to run the ball early. And I mean, if the box is loaded, the box is loaded. And I think you can immediately kind of hit some play action off of that and start working your way downfield. But I really like the idea of gashing them early, you know, starting out the physicality early, leaning on them because, I mean, they're like defensive linemen are 270 pounds on average, I think. Like, you should be able to demolish those guys unless they put, again, 7-8 guys in the box. So I would start with the run, wear them down, and then eventually work into some play action and passing. But, you know, I know that they have a bad passing defense.
See, I was thinking like even 10 personnel, you know, just come out, no tight end, one, you know, Jeremiah Love, spread it out and just let CJ Carr slice them up and then, you know, switch it up and start pounding them after that.
Yeah, I just think, you know, you have to come back to who's the head coach. That's Marcus Freeman. We know he's a ball control, game control kind of guy. And when you're playing Navy, like it's emphasized even more, like, you know, turnovers are going to hurt Navy, but they are really going to hurt Notre Dame too, because Navy can hold on to the ball for so long. So yeah, I just don't think Marcus Freeman is going to off the rip say, let's pass the ball, you know, maybe give Navy the ball immediately and allow them to kind of work some clock, wear down your defense and, you know, potentially score. So I really just think that they're going to try to take it to Navy, and then that will open up the passing game towards the middle of the game. And then you go back to running the ball to end the game.
What's your greatest confidence in this game?
My greatest confidence, this might be a little bit of a home run take here, but I think Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price are both going to have 100 yards on the ground. I think Jadarian Price is finally going to get over 100 rushing yards on the grounds.
So you're more confident in the rushing attack against Navy than you are even – not that you're not confident in the passing game, but you think that Notre Dame is just going to use those two running backs and just slice and dice Navy.
Oh, 100%. I think that in a game where Navy wants to set the tone with physicality and running the ball, I think Notre Dame is going to put their feet in the sand and say, you know, we're the team that runs the ball. We're the more physical team. And I think they just bully them the entire game.
My greatest confidence is that there's going to be a lot of points scored in this game and that Notre Dame is going to score a lot of points and the offense is going to have a big day. It's interesting that you're leaning more towards the rushing game. I guess we'll see what it looks like. ND Saylor in the YouTube chat saying 21 personnel is where he leans. I just don't think that they're going to lean into the two-back stuff. We're at this point in the season, I don't think we're going to see that. But, you know, and again, with as bad as Navy's pass defense is, and with CJ Carr's ability to throw the football, and with Notre Dame's receiver, there are mismatches all over the place. So I'm confident Notre Dame is going to score. We'll get into the over-under when we get to some game props and rapid fire in a little bit. But I think Notre Dame is going to score over 40 points fairly. I'm really confident in that. Do you like that number?
I love the over/under in this game. Trevor and I were talking about that last night.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the over/under is what, like 52, I want to say, or maybe
I think
like
it's 55 and a half.
55 and a half. I mean, Notre Dame put up 51 last year. I know Navy's probably not going to turn the ball over 6 times, but I could see Notre Dame easily putting up 40 points themselves. And then, I mean, like we also talked about this too. You're playing Navy, right? Like they're gonna score. They're just that's just who Navy is. They're not going to go away for 4 quarters. It's going to be pesky, even if you're potentially blowing them out. So I think they get at least a touchdown, maybe 2, and that's already putting you in the kind of in that 54, 55 range. So I think a lot of points are going to be happening as well. The only thing that might give me a little bit of hesitation, I don't know if you saw, but there's in the weather, it's gone from like rain to snow back to rain.
It's
can make for slippery conditions, turnovers, a little bit of sloppiness. So I still think a lot of points are going to be scored.
It poured down rain the whole second half against USC. Like we talked about the rain and the thunderstorms, and they were there. It wasn't an issue. And we've had the Purdue game. There was rain. Go back to Miami. There was rain. There were a couple turnovers. It didn't turn into anything, like a major issue, basically. So I don't think it's going to be a big deal, personally. But we'll see. But it's supposed to start raining right around the time. Oh, Outbound says cold rain is different. I think it's still supposed to be in the 40s, though. Let me check here.
I mean, if there's a potential for snow, it's got to be getting close down to 30.
The lake effect snow, yeah, it's supposed to be in the 40s throughout the game, like right around 40 degrees. So that is obviously not warm, but I'm not seeing it. Rapid fire just around the corner. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. We roll into the 6 o'clock hour. Rapid fire will be rapid tonight. This I can guarantee you. We've got about 20 minutes to get in, get out. Jesse, are you ready for it?
Sorry, there is a very loud and public argument going on outside my house right now. So I was just...
let's drop a microphone down there and see.
No.
That sounds juicy. That sounds like.
Sorry. So when we came back, I was like trying to, making sure it couldn't be heard / trying to mind my own business. But we got to get in and out of here. So let's just freaking get going on this rapid fire.
Fill in the blank. Jadarian Price being named a finalist for the Paul Hornung Award, which honors the most versatile player in college football, is blank.
It's fitting because I think that Jadarian Price is the most versatile player in all of college football, and I think he's one of the most selfless players in all of college football because he could be in running back one at just about any other Power Four school. But I think the coolest part about what he does is even though he's not the premier running back, he still showcases his abilities in other ways, and they're game changing, right? It's not like these are just he racks up kind of stats against bad opponents. These are game changing plays, and a real big factor for why Notre Dame was able to pull away from USC.
I mean, it feels like when you read the description of this award, the most versatile player, it feels like it's made for Jadarian Price. When you look at what he does and all the stuff that you talked about, but obviously being a running back is one thing, but when you throw in his kickoff returning and the fact that he's the only kick returner in the nation with 2 100-yard kickoff returns this season, and the fact that he's 11th in the nation in total touchdowns, 17th in all-purpose yards right now, and the fact that he leads the nation in kickoff return average. He is averaging now. Granted, a couple of 100-yard returns help the average a bit, but he's averaging over 40 yards per kickoff return this season, and it's like Paul Hornung, that's what, like a guy who was a quarterback who also played halfback and who did a little bit of everything. That's why you've got this award named for Paul Hornung. And, again, one, the fact that Hornung starred at Notre Dame, obviously, but then you've got a guy like Jadarian Price doing everything that he does, as versatile as he is. Again, it just feels like it's an award made for him, and it'd be pretty cool if he's able to go on and win this thing this year. Here is Marcus Freeman with some thoughts on the Notre Dame-Navy rivalry.
This is a unique one because it's an every-year rivalry, just like USC. Boston College, obviously isn't every year. And so they often say rivalry games, the records don't matter. Records do matter, I believe. I mean, records are a reflection of where you're at as a program. Records are, it's a reflection of the opportunities you have in front of you. And so we know how big this game is for us personally, but also for the rivalry. I always say that what's more important than the opponent is the obligation we have to each other to get our jobs done. That's what's personal, right? Is that I have an obligation to everybody in this football program to get my job done as the head coach, and I want every person in our program to have that same mentality. That's what we got to take personal. But this rivalry game is one that it means a lot, just the history of it, and it'll be a good challenge.
So I'm curious, is like all this stuff that's been going on with the Notre Dame USC rivalry, will it continue? Won't it continue? Does it make you think any differently about the Notre Dame Navy rivalry?
Yeah, I think it shows that Navy actually has respect and honor at the end of the day. I mean, let's be honest. Navy could have found a way out of this rivalry a long time ago because, for lack of better terms, Notre Dame has dominated them. They kick their butt year in and year out. Navy, like USC's complaining about having to come on the road and play Notre Dame. How do you think Navy feels being undersized, undermanned, and just continuously getting their butt kicked? So I have a lot of respect. I know a lot of people, don't care for the Navy game or the rivalry. I do because of the history behind it. And I think obviously it's a lot easier to stand when Notre Dame dominates it every year.
Yeah, I mean, look, when I first got here 25 years ago and started covering Notre Dame football, like anybody would, like every time the Navy game would come up every season, Navy hasn't beaten Notre Dame since Roger Staubach was the quarterback. And, Staubach was done in 1964, of course. And then, well, unfortunately, 2007 rolled around and Navy started getting its licks back in a little bit. But, there was a period of 40 plus years of dominance in between, or around 40 plus years of dominance between Notre Dame or Navy finally getting in some of those wins. And now obviously there is some monetary incentive for Navy to play this game because of the fact that every other year they played in an NFL stadium and they get like a lot more money out of those games than what they would get.
A little bit of a kickback.
Yeah, than what they would get for playing in their smaller stadium on campus out there, the Navy U.S. Marine Corps Stadium. But it's definitely steeped in tradition. There are times where I'm like, do we really need it anymore? But again, I think that everything that's gone on with USC has definitely, like, we need rivalries in college football. It's part of what makes college football great. And the fact that this goes back as long as it does, and the reason that Notre Dame and Navy play, the significance surrounding World War II and Navy helping keep the Notre Dame campus open because of everything that was going on with World War II by doing training here and that kind of thing. There's obviously a lot of honor on both sides, I think, that comes with it. So I think it's great. And again, like, the USC stuff is kind of shifted a little bit because there have definitely been some times where I'm like, do we really need this all the time? But I do think it's really cool that they continue to play this year in and year out. If you're Notre Dame and you win the coin toss Saturday night, do you take the ball or do you defer?
You take the ball, you put your foot on the gas, and you put the pressure on them, and you go down and you score. I think that if you set the tone and you score first, I think that puts Navy into the mindset that they got to score because Navy just can't get behind, right? Like you cannot. I mean, really, any team that plays Notre Dame, I feel like you can't get behind, but especially Navy. If I were them, I would want to get the ball first, try to chew up, maybe half the first quarter, score a touchdown and put the pressure on Notre Dame. But if I'm Notre Dame, I would take the ball, go down there, and immediately kind of light the fire under Navy's butt.
You take the ball if you're Notre Dame and you try to score on a 50-yard pass play so that you don't have to worry about the red zone. You don't have to worry about short situations, all those different things. Because, you definitely take the ball first if you're Notre Dame because you need to try to get up and put the pressure on Navy. If Navy, as you said, is able to go down, chew up 80 yards and punch it into the end zone, then that you start to feel the pressure a little bit if you're Notre Dame. So this is the one game of the year basically where I would say if you're Notre Dame, you take the ball right away and you don't defer. Does the short yardage stuff, I know you talked about how Notre Dame should be able to own the line of scrimmage, but like those Navy defensive linemen, even if they're undersized and the linebackers as well, they're tough-nosed guys. Like, does that concern you in the short yardage situations, the way Notre Dame has struggled in those instances?
I have a conspiracy, and the reason you come up with conspiracies, I think, is to put yourself at ease in certain situations. My conspiracy about Mike Denbrock and the Notre Dame offense is they're just saving their short yardage plays for when it matters most. They're not trying to tip their hand.
Not wasting all the good ones.
Yeah, they're not trying to put it on film. Some of the sneakier stuff that they plan on doing. No, but I don't think that that's a concern because Notre Dame just needs to do. It's not a matter of physicality or size or speed. It's just they need to get more creative in their play design and short yardage. You can't. It's like Notre Dame holds up a big, bright, flashing sign that says we're running the ball right here. Here's where we're running the ball. Like that's their big issue. It's not a matter of size, athleticism, getting on your block, speed, quickness. Like they have all of that. I just think when they try to get creative in short yardage, they're literally yelling where we're going with the ball, and they think just because they're Notre Dame and they can go big on big that it's gonna work. But I need to see more creativity. It's not because of the lack of physicality.
I do too. Michael Cannon asking if the Notre Dame men's basketball game is on TV. If so, what network? It is on ACC Network Extra. That means streaming service. Go to I don't know, Google ACC Network Extra and see if you can find it. Or I think you can probably go to ESPN's website since they're part of the ACC network and click on the icon there next to the game and should let you watch it that way. Out, going back to the cold, rainy weather and stuff outbound. I mean, he does make a good point. He says, I work outside year round and the worst is cold rain. I'd rather it snow. I'm 100% in that. Cold rain is the absolute worst. I would rather have it snow 100 times out of 100. But the other side of this is both teams have to play in it. So I don't think it's an advantage for either team. It's like it's going to if it's cold and rainy and sucky, it's going to be cold and rainy and sucky for both teams. It's not going to be, I don't think it's an advantage one way or the other.
No, it's not an advantage. And I'll say this too. Once you get the pads on, you start thumping a little bit and you're going through that repetition of just hitting someone of this triple option attack. You don't feel the rain and cold anymore. It's just, You're worried about Navy and tackling that damn fullback dive that's coming every play.
Exactly. Over under 4.5 total punts in the game Saturday night.
Oh man, I'm going to go under. Navy does like to go for it a lot. I think that there's going to be more turnover on downs than there is going to be punts in this game.
Good call. I'm seeing 3. They punted a total of 4 times last year. Each team punted twice. I think it's going to be under as well. There, like every once in a while, you'll see a game where neither team punts or where you have like 1 total punt in the game. So I'm going to go under. Notre Dame's favored by 27.5. That is a lot. Are you in on that much? 27.5.
I mean, 4 touchdowns, it could get to that point, but I just don't. Me and the Notre Dame spread ended a long time ago.
That's right. I did hear you say that last night on the show.
I ended a long time ago. And, I had you place that Boston College wager for me last weekend. And towards the, like when we were going through the list, I was like, should I put it in the spread? And I was like, no, I've learned my lesson. And I'm very happy I did not do that.
You want to go player props, go player props. Leave the outcome of the game out of your parlay. That is the only advice that I will give.
No, but I just, it's a little bit too rich for my blood. And I think, I've talked about this. I think that this game is going to be a lot closer this year. I think Notre Dame pulls out towards the end, their lead gets kind of larger towards the end. But I really believe kind of up until halftime, maybe halfway through the third quarter, this game is going to be close. Within striking distance. It's not going to be a blowout.
Indy Forever 72, over under 1.5 missed extra points and field goals combined for Notre Dame. That's where I'm setting the number, 1.5.
You know what? I'm going to go, I'll go just a half. I think they'll make all their extra points, but I do think they're going to try to work in a field goal or two, and I don't know. I think they'll miss a field goal.
I see a missed field goal in there someplace, especially, when you are factoring in the fact that it will be cold and slick and all that kind of stuff. That's where it not scares me, but that's where it could impact the most is just the, the snap and the operation there on the field goal extra point type stuff. Game over under on this is 55.5. This feels like hammer the over.
Over.
That's incredibly low when Notre Dame could be pushing that number by themselves in this game. And I do think Navy's going to score. It's not like Notre Dame is going to shut them out by any means. CJ Carr's passing over under is 244.5 yards. What do you like on that?
I'm actually going to take the under on this. I would stay away from all of CJ Carr's passing props in this game. I'm still a big believer. Like I said, when we kind of let off the show, I think they're going to run the ball a lot. I think that's going to be an emphasis. Ball control, possession. And again, nothing screams that if it's going to be a little, like Notre Dame's going to throw the ball. Don't get me wrong, but they're not going to press the passing game if they don't have to, especially like Marcus Freeman is not going to tell CJ Carr to start ripping the ball in the third quarter if it's rainy and Notre Dame has a lead. So I just think that this game screams a lot of rushing.
Riley Leonard threw for 178 last year. Like Jeremiah Love still had a nice rushing day, but CJ Carr this season, like this number specifically, he's been over 244 and a half in half of the games. And the pattern has gone exactly every other game. And I wonder how much of that is how much, the way teams are playing them and just game flow and those kind of things. But he's coming off a 299-yard passing game. So I'm going to go under for CJ Carr. I do think it'll be relatively close. I think he'll be in the 225 to 235-ish, area, but I'm going to go under 244 and a half because I do think the running game is going to be a factor, but I think he's still going to have his yards and a few touchdown passes as well. What about Blake Horvath? I think you had a special on Blake Horvath. Was that a true special or did you just make that up last night?
No. So Blake Horvath, I really like his rushing and passing yards combined. It's like when you see Jeremiah Love rushing and receiving lines, he has a passing and rushing line. It was set at 182.5. I would take the over on that. That's the biggest bet I would take in this game because he averages 17 rushes per game, 13 passes per game. So 30 snaps where he's directly either throwing or rushing the ball. Whether Navy is down 100 or up 100, they're just pesky. They're gonna keep running their offense no matter what. So I think he clears 182 yards combined easily.
His rushing total for this game on FanDuel is 94.5, or his passing number is 94.5. His rushing is 82.5. He's got a streak of 6 straight games going over 100 yards coming into this game. Ran for 129 last year, so I think he'll be over 100. So I would take the over there. That passing number I would probably stay away from. He threw for 88 last year. He might get over that, but I'm not confident, especially, weather and, all those different kind of things. Again, they both have to play in the same weather, but I think he's the kind of quarterback that throwing the ball, he would be impacted a lot more than CJ Carr, for example. But he does have 4 games over 100 passing yards this year. Jeremiah Love's receiving number is 25.5. His rushing is 106.5. He's got a FanDuel special 140.5 rushing plus receiving yards. I would take the over on that. I think it's a big game for Jeremiah Love. We got about 3 minutes here, by the way.
Yeah, I'm hammering everything on the running backs. I think these running backs are going to just have a game. And the thing about Jeremiah Love is he can clear that receiving in just one catch. We've seen him do that multiple times this season. I would not be surprised if we see a lot of those kind of short passes to Jeremiah Love. Eli
Heidenreich is a guy who people have fallen in love with. The Navy guy, 38.5 is his over-under for receiving. He has 31 receptions for 575 yards and 4 touchdowns this season. Did you know, I don't know how closely people have looked at this because it's like, oh, you look at those numbers. He had 8 catches for 233 yards and 3 touchdowns against Air Force. It's a little bit of fool's gold. He had one monster game, and it's made his season just look massive. Other than that, he hasn't had more than 72 yards in a single game this season. So I would still go over that 38.5, but not by a lot.
If I had to pick, I would go over, but honestly, I would just stay away from it.
Probably stay away from him. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Is there a receiver who's over you like the most? Faison 63.5, Raritan 32.5, Pauling 43.5, Fields 40.5.
I really like Raritan's 32.5. I think again this game's gonna be played in the trenches. I think you're gonna see a lot of get the ball out quick because of the potential of the rain. I don't think you're gonna see a lot of let's just throw bombs downfield. So I see a lot of passes underneath and over the middle to Eli Raritan.
Outbound says, how long do we keep the starters in? Or
I hate this conversation.
Yeah, because we had this against BC last week. And where did that go? Focus on winning the game. That's I think where you have to go with that. Indiana at Penn State. Hoosiers are a 14.5 point favorite. Scale of 1 to 10. Any confidence Penn State actually covers?
I will put this at a solid 2 out of 10. IU has been rolling. They look really good on both sides of the ball. And Penn State they look deflated. So I don't see them going toe to toe with IU.
Real quick, Texas Tech 10.5 point favorite. Who do you like in that Texas Tech BYU game?
I like Texas Tech just because they're at home, but I think BYU covers that 10.5 point spread. That's a lot of points for teams that are 7 and 8 in the country in the same conference.
You can't win a big game, though, if your quarterback wears number 47. I'm sorry, Bear Bachmeyer. I don't make the rules, but those are the rules. You can't wear 47 and win a big game if you're the quarterback. So
what's worse than that? That or number 99 for that Michigan quarterback?
That's right. That's exactly right. He's Jesse Stiers. I'm Sean Stiers. Notre Dame men's basketball coming up next. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the game. We'll talk to you Monday. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat.